This is a homework helper for Chapter 13, Section 4, Linear Functions in the 8th grade workbook. Let's go and start with number 2 here. In the top two questions, they're asking us to determine whether each function is linear. If so, give the slope and the y-intercept of the function's graph. So remember, as you saw in the instruction today, we know this is the graph of the line if x is single-powered, meaning it has an exponent equivalent to 1. So comparing these two questions, we see here this one does have an exponent of 1. This one has an exponent that's 2. All right, since this one has an exponent that's 2, that means the first answer is no, this is not linear. Now, because this is not linear, I now also can't answer the follow-up questions. But if it was linear, then I would be asking you to find the slope of the line and the y-intercept of the line. So you graph the line, and then tell me where it goes across the y-axis, which is what the y-intercept is, and then tell me the slope of the line, the rise and the run. And remember, the way you do that is you pick 2 points on the line, go from left to right, tell me how much you got to go up or down to get from left to right, and then how much you go to the right to get to that point. Put those numbers together, and that's your slope. Now, since this isn't a line, we're going to have to graph it somehow, and really the only thing we have is the table method of graphing. So remember, the table method of graphing, you pick your own x's. I just happen to pick -1, 0, and 1. You're going to find the corresponding y values and then graph those corresponding y values. So the first time through, I change x into -1. So -1 squared, -1 times -1 is +1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0. 0 squared is 0, minus 1 is -1. And 1 squared is 1, minus 1 changes into 0. So I'm going to graph that, -1, 0, left 1, not up or down, put a point. 0, -1, not right or left, just down 1, put a point. And 1, 0, right to 1, but not up or down. Connect my points for this U shape. And there's the graph of x squared minus 1, the function x squared minus 1. All right, let's go ahead and go take a look at the next part here. In 3 and 4 now, they're asking me to write a rule for each linear function. Now, we did a question like question 3 in the instruction here today, so I'm not going to spend any time really on 3. I'm going to go ahead and instead look at 4. 4 we didn't really do anything like in the homework instruction today. 4 is a table, and given that table, you're supposed to write a rule for the function. So we're going to go ahead and keep on with our slope-intercept form that you saw over and over and over today. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b form. Now, the only thing that's going to change at the end here is I can't use y, right? Because remember, this is a function that revolves around the variable x. So when I'm done, it'll look just like this, but where it says y, I'm actually going to change it to say f of x. All right, now in slope-intercept form, remember the two things that change into numbers are m and b. M represents the slope of the line that's going through all those points. B represents the y-intercept of that line. So once I draw the line, where does it go across the y-axis at? Okay, so first thing we can do is we can find the slope. I don't have the y-intercept just looking at the table. I'm going to have to find it. All right, same thing with the slope. I don't have the slope just looking at the table. I'm going to have to figure it out. But we know how to find slope. All right, I'm going to pick these points down here and find the slope. The slope is the changes in the y values, -4 minus 4, over the changes in the x values, 7 minus 3. All right, well, -4 minus 4 is -8, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So the slope is really -8 over 4, or -2. All right, so I have half of my answer here now. I have m. All right, now I need to find b. Well, again, I don't have that information just looking at this table, but what I do have are a bunch of different values that could be x and y. Well, if I have different things that can be filled in here for x and y, all right, I can use that to then solve an equation, which is how I'll find b. So you want to pick something on that list to plug in for x and y. I'm going to pick 3, 4, because, well, I can. All right, 3 is an x, 4 is a y. So change x into 3, 4 into y, and solve the equation for b. Well, that's easy. 4 equals negative 6 plus b. So what number would I add to negative 6 to make 4? Well, 10 plus negative 6 makes 4, which means b has to equal 10. Well, that's good because that's our other missing piece of information. I now know that I can change b into 10. So my equation is going to say y equals negative 2, my slope, negative 8 over 4, x plus 10. Again, only change that we're going to make from this slope-intercept form that you've seen over and over and over again is I'm going to change y into f of x. So if you want a final answer, what am I going to write on the line? I'm going to say f of x equals negative 2x plus 10. Now, taking a look at 3, I'm not going to do 3 with you, but that's really easy. Use that same equation, find the slope, the rise and the run, pick 2 points, find the rise and the run, that's m, and then b is where this line crosses over the y-axis at. Where does this guy cross over the y-axis? What number? Change b. Again, do the same thing then, change y into f of x. You really don't have any serious calculation or any math really you have to compute here. It's just looking at the graph and going with it. All right, let's look at the last one. At the sweater store, the price of a sweater is 20% more than the wholesale cost plus a markup of $8. Find a rule for a linear function that describes the price of the sweaters at the sweater store. Use it to determine the price of a sweater with a wholesale cost of $24.50. Okay, so if I'm buying a sweater, I'm paying 20% more plus $8. Well, there's a way we can say 20% more that's pretty simple. All right, if I'm paying $24.50 wholesale for the sweater and I'm increasing the price by 20%, that means I'm really paying 120% because I have to pay the whole price of the sweater plus the extra 20%. So I'm paying 120%. So the linear function here that describes the price of the sweaters is going to start off, and I'm going to say x times 120%, which of course I'm going to write as a decimal, which is going to be 1.2. Again, that's the price of the sweater being multiplied by 120%. I'm paying all the price plus the extra 20% that they've said in the first line. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to pay a markup of $8. So I'm going to add on to this 8, and that's going to equal the cost of my sweater. Now, normally we would write y equals, but remember, we're doing functions, so we're going to write f of x. Now, that's almost exactly how I would write that answer, except I'm going to flip these around so it looks like slope-intercept form, like you saw throughout the instruction and in the questions we've already done. So I'm going to write here for my function, f of x equals 1.2x plus 8. Now, follow-up question then here says I'm going to buy a sweater that's $24.50 at wholesale. And I'm supposed to figure out how much I'm now going to pay for that sweater. Well, what that means, x is the cost of the sweater. In this particular question, we know that the cost is $24.50. So I'm going to change x into $24.50. So to answer line 2, 1.2 times $24.50 plus 8. Well, when I do 1.2 times $24.50, the result is $29.40, and when I add on the $8, $37.40. So that sweater that's $24.50 wholesale is going to end up costing me $37.40 at retail.